Have you ever felt shamed, blamed, persecuted, made wrong, had false allegations, and this has left you feeling afraid to speak up, afraid to have an opinion, afraid to take a stand for what you believe in, and ultimately frozen with fear sometimes, with even stating what you believe or what you feel? Maybe you have a hard time coming into your voice, into your power, because of the fear of persecution. Are you ready to transform your wounds to your wisdom to your superpowers, so that you can truly transform your pain to your power and your power to passionate purpose? I am Schamet Horsfield, Wounds to Wisdom Oracle and Coach, and I will be your guide upon your journey of transforming wounds to wisdom, so you can truly manifest a life of your wildest dreams. If you have any of those feelings, then you may suffer from the persecution wound. And you might ask, what is the persecution wound? Well, it is a very real wound, similar to the witch wound, as the witches were persecuted. However, persecution stands on its own merit because it can be the persecution of so many different things and so many different reasons. You may have been persecuted, and it is my feeling and my belief and my experience that if you were persecuted in a past life or in this lifetime, then you're holding that frequency of persecution. And until you clear that persecution energy, then it's sitting like law of attraction, sitting in your field, and then you just draw in more persecution. And when I speak of this, I'm speaking from experience. I know I have the persecution wound, and I know for myself it's lifetimes of persecution, because I am a mover and a shaker. I am a truth teller. I am a storyteller, and I stand up for what I believe in, and I have for many lifetimes. I know this to be true for myself. Now, if you don't believe in past lives and things like that, that's okay. We all can believe what we want. And I am of the mind that we believe what we believe according to what happens to us. I know for me, I didn't believe in past lives until I remembered my past lives and then had confirmation that my past life memory was a shared experience. Someone else had the same experience that I did of my own past life. And it became very apparent that, yes, indeed, I have had past lives of persecution. I have also had many soul clients that have had this persecution wound and had been persecuted in the past and remembers the persecution. So I am so excited. I'm like so excited to share this with you. But my Oracle deck, Wounds to Wisdom, Wisdom to Superpowers, is ready to go to print. It is finished. I have got the prototype right here. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about the persecution wound from my own Oracle deck. So it's a persecution wound Oracle reading. This is the persecution wound. So pretty. Yeah. So, when we're aware of what's going on, when we can actually name it, we can understand it, we can give a vocabulary to it, we can give an awareness to it. It takes the energy out of it, right? It makes it less of an unknown. It makes it less of a fear. It makes it more like, oh, okay, I got a persecution wound. What's that? Let's look at it. So a persecution wound is, let me read it to you. All right. The persecution wound is a deep scar etched into the collective human psyche, shaped by the oppression, discrimination, and violence endured by marginalized groups throughout history. It carries the pain of being targeted simply for being different. So, yeah, if you're a little bit different, if you have different points of view, if you dress a little bit different, if you are outside the box and outside the societal norms, then you may be subject to that persecution wound. And so many of us were when we were kids, right? Who didn't get made fun of? I did. Put it in the chat if you got made fun of when you were in school and it felt horrible, right? I remember so much, like there was a group of cliquey girls that on the first day of school, they said, "Oh, we want to be your friend." And I thought, "Oh, great. I've already got friends on the first day of school." And then they had a contract for me to fill out. I had to read it. I had to agree to everything. And then I could be in their group. Well, I read it and I was like, this is a bit, no, it's not resonating with my morals. Like, it doesn't feel good. So I handed it back to the girl and I said, "Well, is a girl name, and I won't put her name out here in the public, but is so-and-so part of your group?" "Oh, no, no, she's not." And I said, "Oh, well, why not? She's a really nice person." "Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, no, she's not in the group." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I really like her and she's my friend. And so I'm going to say no." And they said, "Oh, you've made such a big mistake." And I said, "Okay, well, yeah, that's your opinion. And but I already have a friend." And she goes, "Oh, well, you won't have any friends besides her." I said, "Well, I only need one good friend." But that was the beginning of this persecution energy. If you don't do what we are asking you to do, then you don't get to be part of our group. I was young, and I was like, I was like 11 or 12 years old. But I knew then, I knew in the fabric of my own being that it wasn't right, that it wasn't okay. And so we can check in with our body wisdom, our heart, our soul, our spirit of what feels right for us. In what ways are we getting ready to be persecuted? And is that okay? I made the right, I made the right decision. We ended up creating our own group. We were called the Misfits, and it was anyone that was different. And the only prerequisite to being in the group was you have to be a nice person. Just be kind, be nice. You can be different. We did mohawks and all kinds of fun stuff, but the thing was we were kind and nice to each other and not cliquey and horrible. And, with so much going on in the world, I really felt called today to share with you the persecution wound because there's so much persecution going on right now with the elections coming up. Dare I even mention the word elections? But I do. It's coming up, and I am feeling a sadness inside, a heaviness that there is going to be so much persecution for the beliefs that people have. We all have different beliefs. We all have different perceptions. But how can we drop back down into our hearts? And even if people don't agree with us or don't vote in the same way that we do, can we just not persecute others for their beliefs and their perceptions? Because the persecution wound is so damaging. And so I felt a real strong urgency to come on here and talk about the persecution wound. So let's see, what else should I read here? I've got a message from the Oracle for all of you about the persecution wound. We are collectively awakening to the divine feminine power within, a movement we can feel in our hearts, in our soul, and in our bones. You are being called to heal this collective wound, and therefore you are being asked to educate yourself about the historical and systemic roots of persecution. Understanding this will empower you to dismantle its perpetuation and help you advocate for a more just and compassionate world. That's what we want, a more compassionate world. So the wound, here we go. The wound. The wound is patriarchal thinking, has conditioned us to believe if we embody our feminine power, especially our intuition, sexuality, and emotions, we are manipulative, deceptive, and even dangerous. For lifetimes, women have been shamed, blamed, abused, and persecuted for expressing our true nature. This has created a fear of our own power, silencing us from and keeping us small. So, the persecution wound is, similar in some ways to the witch wound, which I've already talked about the witch wound on another video. But I want to just share a story with you about the persecution wound to kind of give you an example. And this just happened to me when I was in Hawaii, because I have the persecution wound. It does sit in my energy field. I've cleared a lot of it. And, I thought that it was cleared, right? But we get told, we get shown by the universe when it's not cleared, because then we have another experience. And I bumped up against it. Now I have cleared a lot of it. So I was able to handle it in a very emotionally, spiritually intelligent way. So I'm really proud of myself. However, it still was like, what? Really? Oh my goodness. Okay. So there's a guy laying in a hammock, and he looked very peaceful. He looked like a soul brother, like he looked cool, And so I went up to him and I was like, oh, he was packing it up actually. I was like, oh, you're taking the hammock down. Is it yours? And he says, oh, yeah, I brought it to the beach. And I was like, wow, that's a good idea. I've been waiting for you to get off that hammock so I could get on, but I can see now why you never got off of it, because it's yours. And he says, oh, yeah, I live local and I bring my own hammock. And I was like, wow, that's a special place to be, because it was like perfectly, positioned around two palm trees, looking at the ocean. Like it was the place to be. So he's packing it up, and we get to chit-chatting and talking about this and that and the other. And he's a pretty cool guy. He's got a I love Jesus necklace around his neck, which, I love Jesus too. So I didn't even think anything of it really, to be honest, until later. But then we get to talking, and we started talking about politics, and we started talking about religion, and we started talking about some deeper things. And then it was just very quick to turn, and the whole conversation turned when I told him that I was an oracle. And he physically jumped back and immediately started, saying that the oracles are evil witches that have cast terrible spells and done terrible things. And if I am an oracle, then I'm a witch, and that means I am evil and satanic and all these horrible things. And I was like, what? No, I'm not. Like, I love Jesus too. Like, Jesus came to me when I was initiated as a priestess in Glastonbury, and like I love Jesus. And he did not want to hear any of it. It was just, I was wrong, I was evil, that was that, and he did not want to talk to me. And I was like, oh, wait, but I think you're misunderstanding. And I said, there's a difference between judgment and discernment. And he said, nope, there's no difference between judgment and discernment. And he said, I used to believe that there was a difference, but I don't anymore. It's just all about judgment. And he went on a tirade about how he has to do something about it, and so does everyone else. And that judgment is very important. And it was a very, very black and white thinking. You know, either you were good and you're an angel and you're, worshiping God, and Jesus is your saving grace kind of religious outlook, or you are part of the problem, you are evil, you are burning in hell. And yeah, and I felt my own persecution wound get re-triggered. And I came back because I had been, like in heaven, like this feeling of euphoria and heaven on earth, and just like, so peace and happiness and everything. And then I come back to the hotel, and my husband's like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Well, just had a really weird experience." And I told him about it, and he goes, "Oh, well, just don't even think about him. Like, it's an SCP, someone else's problem." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but sometimes I forget that people really believe this way." And it really scared me. And it did. It scared me in that, it was not that long ago that women were burned at the stake for being witches. People were persecuted and they died for their belief system. And it scared me in that, could we undergo another modern day witch hunt? Could we be persecuted again? And yeah, the answer is yes. And and that scared me. And so my persecution wound got triggered. Now, I believe the treasures are always found in the triggers. And so I sat with it. And I channeled that into my oracle, of course, and I sat with it and I thought, wow, I need to talk to people. I need to share about the persecution wound, that it is real, and it is real even today. We get persecuted for what we believe. We get persecuted for how we dress, what we believe in spiritually, what we don't believe in, and the words that we use. And he's even one thing he said to me as well. He goes, "Well," I said, "Well, I used to go to church 3 times a week. I used to sing in the choir called Something Higher and go into the prisons and talk to them about God." And he goes, "Oh, well, what happened?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean what happened?" He goes, "Well, where did your faith go? You're obviously not that religious person anymore." And I said, "Well, no, that's not obvious. I still do believe in Jesus. I still believe in God. I also believe in goddess, and I also believe in being wise." And I didn't even attempt to go in there and tell him what I felt like witch means, but I wanted to. I wanted it to dismantle that one and say, witch means a woman in total control of herself. But I didn't go there because I already knew where that was going to go. And it just reminded me that there are so many people that have this black and white thinking. And he was unwilling to converse with me because I said, "Hey, we're having a great conversation. We can continue." And he said, "No, no, I'm not interested in arguing with you." And I said, "Oh, well, I didn't feel like we were arguing. I think we were just having a conversation about our beliefs, and we believe different things. And I used to believe what you believe, but I don't anymore. I have a different belief on it all now." And he said, and he just got on his bike and he said, "No, no, thanks. Have a good life. Bye." And I was like, "Okay, wow. All right. Well, he's not open." And so I want to remind you, if you're watching this, if you're still with me, try to stay open. Even if inside of you, you're going, I don't believe this. Try to stay open. And this is a challenge for me too, especially if you have the persecution wound and it gets triggered. It's really hard to see anything outside of our own belief system, anything outside of, what we feel and what we know to be true. But I have been working on releasing and transmuting this persecution wound by holding space for myself and holding space for others that have different perceptions. And, I have studied beliefs. I am a belief coach. I've got my certification in beliefs. And so I know that the beliefs that we have create our perception. They create how we see the world. And how we see the world then impacts the way we relate in the world, and how and what we see and what we feel. And so I do know it's like the alphabet. Beliefs are like the alphabet to the construction of our perceptions and our everything and our reality ultimately. So if you've learned anything from this video at all, let it be to stay open as much as you can, going back to the breath, breathing into your heart center. And, let's do it right now. One hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. Ah, I know I've got myself a little wound up with everything that's going on. I'm feeling the energy out there. And with election day coming up, and let's just breathe. And ultimately, the way that we can heal and transmute this persecution wound is going back to our heart, back to love, back to forgiveness, and breathing and breathing and breathing. Ah, coming back to knowing our own heart, standing true in who we are, knowing thyself, knowing what our beliefs are and why we believe them, and knowing our own heart. Like, I know who I am. I don't have to prove it to anyone. And if someone else has a different belief than me, that's theirs to have. Now, it would have been great to have a conversation, but if it's not there, it's not there. But, the persecution wound actually can't have an impact on us unless we allow it to. And first things first is knowing how you feel and who you are and who you're not. And then standing strong in who you are, but not so strong that you're imposing your views or perception or beliefs onto someone else. With this gentleman, I was not trying to do that. I was actually just merely conversing, and I thought we were having a good time conversing, but I was wrong because he wanted to stand strong in his own position, and so did I. And we weren't actually going to get anywhere with that conversation. So it was probably a good thing that he got on his bike and went off. But I was hoping for more of an opening, more of a conversation. But can we let go and surrender? And this is the energy that we're all experiencing right now, is how can we surrender? How can we let go? And I invite you to step into the energetics of surrender and letting go, especially with, the elections and what's going to be happening just here in a short amount of time. Can we surrender and let go and trust that there is a higher plan in order and everything is happening exactly the way it's meant to, even when it doesn't feel like it? And that's a big one. And it is a spiritual journey and a spiritual practice of mine that I practice every day. And it helps me create an inner peace and a calm inside of me, an acceptance of what is. And, I have the courage to change the things I can, but the wisdom to know the difference and the ability to choose to surrender and let be. Have a wonderful, beautiful, blessed day. So much love and so many blessings on your awakening journey. And please comment in the chat below of how you found this message. And I'd love to know if you have a persecution wound and any wisdom that you want to share from that experience. And just love to hear from you in the comments. And also know that you can pre-order my Wounds to Wisdom deck. The link will be in the comments below. So much love and so many blessings to each and every one of you. Mwah.